Today, we are joined by Susan Bratton, an intimacy expert, best-selling author, publisher of 44 books and programs. She is personally in a throuple, and she's here to talk to us today about her experience in polyamory, both personally and professionally. Susan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Shar. Hi, Liv. Hi, Josh.
Hi,
welcome. I'm glad to be here.
It's wonderful to have you. So can you just introduce yourself and give us a quick introduction to who you are and what your experience is in polyamory?
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Susan Bratton. My title is Intimacy Expert to Millions, and I'm the CEO of two companies, a company called Personal Life Media, and I'm a publisher and author of passionate lovemaking techniques, bedroom communication skills, and what I would call intimate wellness. And that really covers everything from like STIs to, when you have sex with a number of people, you have to be really smart about STIs and things like that, all the way through to what I would call sexual regenerative therapies and also sexual biohacking. I was mentioning before we started the show that I'm on my way to Austin to speak at the Biohackers World Conference, and my subject is sexual biohacking. So one of the things that I really am focused on is ageless sexuality. And the reason that I am is because when I was about 42, and I'm 62 now, so just 2 decades ago, I'd been married for a decade monogamously, and our relationship was really faltering because I didn't want to have sex with my husband anymore. It had never, after the first couple of years, been very satisfying for me, and it was very satisfying for him. And I just was like trying to avoid him for sex. And, it was really, really taking a toll on our marriage. And we decided to do something about it. And what we did was kind of a 1-2 punch on our, possibility, which was number one, we went to therapists. And then the second thing we did was we started going to sex workshops. The therapy helped a lot with some trauma that I'd had. And the sex workshops were really, really helpful because we very quickly learned how to have super good sex together. And then because we were having such good sex together, we're like, hey, maybe we should fuck some other people. And we asked our friends if
That's
they wanted to have
sex with us. That's a natural progression, I think.
I think it is. I think it's very normal. Once you have some skill, you want to expand your skill set. And we asked some of our friends and they're like, you are disgusting. Never talk to us again. And we're like, well, okay, you don't your friends. Who do you? And, we cast about a bit, trying different things. We were kind of more in the open relationship at that time. Didn't even really completely understand what poly was. And then one of our friends said, let me take some mercy on you. There's a polycule. There's a poly group of people here, conscious poly people, that we'd like to introduce you to and get you involved in because you clearly need some help. And thank God they did, because that really got us into a depth of poly experience where we have had the opportunity to be with some of the most poly-educated, poly-experienced people on the planet. And I think that's been really good. So for the last 20 years, we've had what I would essentially call open, didn't last very long, segueing pretty quickly into poly, which suited us better. And I should probably define what I mean by that, because I think there are, everyone defines these things a little bit differently. I think open relationship is more along the lines for us as a kind of like somewhere between swinging and poly, not so long-term, not so family-oriented, where poly tends to be, for us, what it's been is more kitchen table poly. I would call us matriarchal kitchen table poly. Mm-hmm. So for me, I need to have people in my polycule that are very much like family, a part of what we do. We have a 27-year-old daughter who's always known our partners and loves them and has been fine with it, even though she's a more monogamously oriented person at this point. I'm holding out hope for her. And so we've been doing that in many different permutations of poly, with women in the polycule, men in the polycule, people, theys and thems in the polycule. Over time, our longest relationship's been 9 years. The one we're currently in has been 3 years. We've had some poly that didn't go well, situations that were extremely painful over many years of trying to get through, like compersion is nice, but it shouldn't fucking break your heart. You've got to have your own boundaries around what's right for you and your poly. You have to stand as a sovereign being for yourself and say what you need. And if the things aren't working, you need to say them. You can't give yourself up for other people's poly. It has to work for everybody. That's kind of like what I've discovered is important for us. So, really what I've done is I have written passionate lovemaking techniques and bedroom communication skills for people who I call sexual seekers, the maybe 10 to 15% of us that haven't like completely either been shamed, repressed, abused, religiously, destroyed, or who they can be monogamous. My market is a mass market, but they are the kind of people who want what I call my style of teaching sex. I teach people how to transform having sex into making love. I publish techniques and communication skills for lovers. That's really what I do.
So how has your experience with polyamory affected your professional career?
I was in the closet for about 15 of the 20 years polyamorously. I was poly, but I didn't talk much about it. I didn't honestly think that the mass market, that was my customer base, which is primarily 40, 50, and 60-year-old heterosexual monogamous people, wanted to hear anything about that. And as I became more confident about my own poly success and poly wisdom and poly experience, I began to sneak a little bit of, instead of saying my husband, I would sometimes say my lover. Sometimes I would write up my threesome experiences. I've had 500, 600, 700 threesomes, more, 1,000. I've had 1,000 threesomes now. I mean, when you're poly, and the kind of poly that I like, I like group sex. I like us all to be together. It's really, really, really satisfying and inclusive, which I like. So at first, I didn't say anything about it. And now the landscape is changing so much that I think there's a real place for, a 20-year successful, been through thick and thin poly sexpert to have some. I got to pass down my wisdom like the wisdom was passed down to me, because I didn't make all the stuff up that I teach. I have had some incredible mentors who are in their 70s, pushing 80, who have been poly for decades and decades and decades, who really inducted me into the poly Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that's amazing. We've talked about the elders, the polyamory elders, and how they don't exist because we don't hear about them. We don't get those that help and that advice from them.
We know they exist. It's just they're usually not on social media.
Right, that's what I mean.
Very hard to find.
Yeah. That's great. You had the opportunity to actually be in contact with them.
Yeah.
And become one.
Yes.
Exactly.
So why do you think polyamory is on the rise now?
I think the dating apps have given so many of us choice, more choice. And when you see the variety of choice, you naturally realize, the thing that was prescribed to me by my culture is not actually what really turns me on. And so I'm interested in that person. And so I love the rise of all of the words like pansexual, sapiosexual, we're getting a better vocabulary for the possibility of our pleasure.
Even if I feel like, especially as a young person, even if you try something and then later you're deciding it's not for you, you have the option to try it out. Nobody gets to prescribe what you should be into.
Yeah, I think that's one of my favorite things about just polyamory in general and the polyamorous community is like, it seems like as a whole, we are very accepting of that and cognizant of that we're always changing and giving partners and ourselves the space to evolve and change. And it's something that when I look around me at the relationships that, especially long-term monogamous relationships, while there's obviously a lot of love, it seems like there's also a lot of stifling in personal growth and personal development. And I think it's just that you don't have that freedom necessarily,
Yeah.
or
What
maybe
more
it's
could you
fear
be?
that you're going to grow apart if you change in this area. So, yeah.
Susan, how have
You know
you
what's-
noticed
sorry.
polyamory, like the community, change since you first became poly till where we are now? Because most of the people we interview all over the country, they're all new to it. It's since COVID, pretty much.
Yeah.
It's been about 90%. So what was it like before that? What have you witnessed?
I would say that it was a much smaller community pre-COVID. And you're right. I agree with you too, Josh, that it's just, like a bomb went off and everybody was like, I like this. This is good. It's like more love, polyamory, many loves. I like that. I want that. And so there is a massive groundswell of people. There's so many. You have a lot of them on your show. There's so many sexperts who specialize, or psychotherapists or coaches who specialize in navigating the polyamory issues. And I think that younger people are so much more inclusive with each other. Older poly people still tended to be primarily heterosexual, and they were just enjoying making love with, like they would be married, but they'd each like a common old poly group would be a married couple who both had another partner. That would be a super common old poly. A new poly is much more dynamic, much more gender spectrum, much less, and here's another thing that I think is interesting, much less kind of like in it for the long term, because number one, I think the issues of minimum wage, the issues of all of the money in our work organizations float up to the people who own it, and workers aren't making enough money to make a living wage and to live separately on their own. People need to live in community just to fucking pay the rent. And so I think that capitalistic, socialistic bifurcation where all of the money, all the corporations and the people at the top of the corporations are making 90% of the money, and the 10% is left for everybody else, and people can't get by.
Would you like to tell us more about your throuple? How is your
Sure.
throuple relationship like?
It's so fun. It's so nice. I'll just tell you from my perspective, I think, I'm in a throuple with my husband. I've been with him 32 years. I've been with him longer than I haven't. He is my life person. And my current boyfriend, we've been with him for 3 years. We just had our anniversary this week, 3-year anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And it's going better than ever with both of them. I'm extremely happy to be in relationship with the two of them. They are so darling and good to me. They love me so much, and I love them so much, and they love each other so much. They're both straight, but they don't have any issue being in bed together. We love to have threesomes together. I also love my solo dates with both of them. We travel together. He has his own home. He's been married 3 times. And he says, I wish I knew all of the things that you taught me, not just the sexuality stuff, but the communication skills that you taught me. I would still be married to my first wife if I'd had those. And my husband and my boyfriend are like bros. They're like best friends. They have a bromance. They love each other. It's kitchen table. Our daughter loves my boyfriend. They are very, very close. Um, it's so additive. It's so loving. It's so caring. If one of us has a problem, the other two are right there supporting that person.
Right.
It's also nice because one of the things that I think I like the best about it is that both my partners are so different that I kind of get this even more beautiful spectrum of joy out of my life because my boyfriend is very athletic. We like to ride bikes and do athletic shit. My husband, he's like a brainiac genius, and he loves his 5 monitors in front of him, all filled with spreadsheets and numbers. He's like, tick, 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 tick. Brilliant, so smart. I'm like, every time he's like a walking Google, you know. It's like, I ask him a question. I'm like, how the fuck do you know everything? But he likes, he's an introvert. He likes a lot of alone time. He works a lot. If I was only married to my husband, I'd be lonely. But I'm not. I'm also in relationship with my boyfriend who doesn't like to work as hard, and he likes to do fun shit.
Right.
And he's adventurous. And so my husband is glad for the time alone where he doesn't have to take care of me constantly.
Exactly.
And I have someone who can kind of like occupy my time. So I like that a lot. And last year, I also had a girlfriend, and it was a really interesting relationship because she's married and her husband, she's poly, but her husband's like, I don't want you to be poly. That's going to be an interesting thing that'll run through. But she was pregnant, and I was her ecstatic birth partner last year.
Wow.
So I basically gave her yoni massages and breast pleasuring and belly rubs for the entire time that she was pregnant and had her babe, our little precious baby. I think about her as my baby too, you know. And that was like a really, really sweet and special experience for me as well. So I don't know if I answered your question. How was that?
You did. So basically, it's a V dynamic more than a throuple, just to make it clear for our listeners.
Yep,
and
it is a V.
I have a question for you, because this is something that I don't know if you watched some of our episodes. We have a lot of male, female, male, female throuples. And
You do.
It's not because we don't want to showcase the male, female, male, but it's very hard to find them. And why do you think that is? Why most of the thruples or Vs are 2 females and 1 male?
I would say most commonly it's probably because of vestigial patriarchal education or brainwashing, manipulation, where more and more women will enjoy having 2 male partners rather than feeling like they just need to be in a threesome. I mean, it's really common that when you say threesome, people think 2 women and a man, and a man. So it's just like what people think about. And when you say, no, what about 2 men and a woman? They're like, well, are they gay? And
Right.
It's like, what a fucking are? You
Right.
know, like, okay, what is your, you know, so it's still like old school thinking in many ways. I also think that there just are not a lot of women yet who feel empowered to say, yeah, it takes 2 men to take care of me. That's what I like. I like to have a couple guys around me. And I do. I really like 2 men taking care of me. And taking care is what I say and what they do, because one of the books that I wrote, I've written 44 books and programs, you guys. I am a busy little girl.
Yes.
And one of the books is a book called, how do I have it here? Relationship Magic. The exercise in the book helps you understand what your top 4 relationship values are and what all your poly partners' top 4 relationship values are. And then what does that mean to you? And then how would they show you that they're giving those things to you? What is it? What are the actions they can take so you're getting the things you need most out of your relationship with them? And it's basically NLP values elicitation is what it really is. NLP is neuro-linguistic programming, and values elicitation is what it is that you care most about, what makes meaning and makes you feel good in your relationships. And so once you go through the relationship magic process and you fill out your workbook, and then you tell your partner, here's what I need, they're like, oh shit, that's so easy to give to you. I will stop treating you. I call it the difference between the golden rule. The golden rule is ruining your relationships and mucking up your marriage. The platinum rule, the golden rule is do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. Treat your partner the way they want to be, the way you want to be treated. That's not true. That doesn't work.
Yeah, we're definitely aware that we each have different needs, and we know we're not supposed to treat each other the same way. But like, yeah, I think that's a great thing to go through.
Earlier, you mentioned with all of your experience in polyamory that you've had things that went very well and things that not so much.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for our listeners on maybe how to avoid some of the not so good things that you've encountered?
Yeah. Even just you asking me that question, I feel this like almost like this seeping bitterness going across my sternum, above my breasts, in my chest, and like making my heart almost hurt from, and it like wells up in my throat like there's a lump in my throat even thinking about it. It was horrible. I'm having trouble swallowing right now just thinking about it. It's but the good news is that I lived through it and I learned a lot. It was a 4-year relationship that my husband had, and I got very, very ill from COVID. I got the novel virus in March of 2020 from my then partner of 9 years, who I broke up with. And honestly, I broke up with him because I realized that we were no longer a values match. And my values are very important to me. My progressive values are very important to me. Fox News got him. And I was so sick. And my husband had just met this woman, and they were really getting along well. And I was enjoying watching him open her to her pleasure, and I was enjoying them enjoying each other. And there was nothing I could do but lie in bed. I was down for 18 months. I wasn't sure I would ever work again.
Wow.
I couldn't talk for 4 months. I couldn't read anything. I was too sick to watch television. I was too sick to listen to podcasts. I couldn't read for a couple of years. It took me a long time to come back from a very, very, very bad COVID. And I thought, well, I want them to be happy. But as I started feeling better about a year after, I realized I was terribly lonely and that they had completely fallen in love with each other. And then I started saying, I feel lonely. And they were like, well, join us. And I thought, well, I'm not really attracted to her. I don't really want to be part of what you're doing. I just want my husband to put some attention back on me. And I kept saying, I'm lonely. And like, when she was gone, he would work all the time. And then when she was here, he would put all his attention on her. And I just felt completely marginalized by it. And I really, really, really tried that compersion thing for a long time. I was just practice your compersion, be happy for him, be happy for him. But I realized that not only was I unhappy, they weren't hearing my unhappiness. They weren't making any adjustments to bring me into the fold or to do any of those kinds of things. And then they were like, well, why don't you get a boyfriend? And I was like, all right, I'll get a boyfriend. And I said, I'm going to get a summer boy toy. I don't want another. I had a boyfriend for 9 years, and he became a drag. He was so entitled about, like, he just expected everything to be done for him. It was like having a teenager show up at my house I had to take care of after a while. It was like I was too good to him. I don't know. And it's not them. It's me, you guys. Me. Not holding my boundaries, not saying enough about what I need and sticking to it. It's not them. Everything they did, I either implicitly or explicitly allowed to happen. I felt like I was saying it and saying it and saying it. It was a combination, honestly. It wasn't just all me, but we're all culpable for the shit that goes down
Right.
in our relationships. And so my summer boy toy was really great. And by the fall, I said, I'm promoting you to full-time boyfriend because I really, really am enjoying you. But I was still lonely. And like a few months after that, he said, look, I can't be the solution to your problem. You have a problem. You're unhappy. You're very unhappy in this relationship. And you're expecting me to make you happy. And I don't want to do that anymore. And I'm like, that is true. So, so should I keep going? Is this good?
Go ahead. Yes.
Okay. So I kept complaining. And finally I was like, you just have to stop seeing her. I felt like she was trying to get him to leave me. And she was. It turns out she was. I was right. She was trying to get him to leave me. That's not poly. That's called husband stealing.
Cowgirling.
Bullshit.
Yeah.
And this is why so many women are afraid to have their husband be with someone else, because that bitch will steal them. And literally just kind of like fast forward, I was like, it has to end. He'd say it ended. He couldn't end it. He'd go back to her. He was miserable. He was out of integrity. They would see each other behind my back. I knew it. I caught him every time. And it went on and on and on. And everybody in my world was like, how can you put up with this shit for so long? Like, how can you just be so expansive? And I'm like, I think my husband takes a long time to really like get to the core of his feelings and process stuff. I'm a real fast processor. And he's the opposite. He's like, oh my God, it takes him so long. And that's okay. It's okay. I gave him space. But then there was a point at which I was like, this is it. I have hit the end where I don't want these. This has gone on for years now. I don't want to be with you anymore. I am exhausted from this. I'd literally now rather be on my own than deal with your bullshit. And he's like, okay, I'm going to stop. And then a couple months later, I come home and I said, never let her in my house, never see her again, block her. He's like, I know, I just can't seem to control myself. I know I'm doing wrong, but then when she shows up, it's like, I just lose my mind. And I'm like, she can't show up anymore. You have to stop being with her. She is not good for you. She is not good for us. We run 2 businesses together. We have a daughter. You're going to ruin your life over like I've given you the opportunity to leave and you don't leave. You obviously keep choosing me. So why are you eroding this relationship? And I went out of town and I came back and she had come over and she had packed him up and moved him out of my house.
Wow.
To her house. She stole my husband. And he allowed himself to be stolen.
That's what I wanted to say. Couldn't he say, no, get out of here?
He didn't. He couldn't for his own reasons. He couldn't. There was something about their dynamic where she was able to control him. And he is working on that in therapy, which is good. He's responsible. And I call my boyfriend and I'm like, she moved him out. He's like, oh, do you want me to fly up? And I'm like, yep. We flew up and we went over there. We got his shit and we brought him home. And he let go and he stopped contacting her and he hasn't contacted her ever since. And he is working through that. And he needed all that time and he had to hit that rock bottom. And, he's better now. He went through some grief and he went through some, trying times, but our relationship is repairing and it's still slow, but he and I both feel like we are the people who will be together forever. There's no way he wanted to leave me. He was like, yeah, I don't know. It just, it just happened. Like it was really hard for him. He's very Asperger-y. He's very different. He has a different emotional tone than other people. You know, you have to deal with neurodivergency in relating. You have to understand those. You have to be spacious with that. So anyway, things are back to being much better. We're having a good time. He seems to be doing well. He's thriving again. His work is getting better. Like his shit was falling apart from all that too.
Right.
You know? And so I feel like there's still some vestigial work that needs to be done that we're doing, but that we've righted the boat and that things are they're better, but they're not perfect, but they're continually improving. And so, you know, it's your worst nightmare as a woman is your husband of 32 years being taken away from you.
I guess that's every throuple, like maybe a man's fear too. Like you bring somebody else in your relationship and you have that fear. What if that somebody is going to, you know, make a run with my partner? All that happened. Do you think that it improved your relationship or it maybe hurt it in a way?
In the grand scheme of things, it improved it. But I'll tell you that when we almost got divorced in our 40s, that was the time we became radically honest with each other. And when you practice complete honesty with your partner, it really helps you get through thick and thin, no matter what it is, because you're going to go through thick and thin. You're going to go through financial issues, health issues, relationship issues. You're just going to go through them. This is what life is. It's up and it's down over and over and over again. Yes. So for me, it has been the truth-telling skills that have really been the critical component for us to get through and if we can get through what we've already been through, me almost dying, almost losing him and him, having all these, these issues, we can get through anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good advice. Radical honesty.
It seems like that's the theme that runs through all the throuple relationships, like communication, polyamorous in general. Like you've got to have that radical honesty, that communication,
even if it's something you don't want to hear.
Yeah. How long ago was that?
Which?
Where the girlfriend moved your husband out of the house?
3 months, maybe.
Oh, so it's very recent.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't tell if that was 20 years ago.
Considering it's been only 3 months, the way you were talking about it, I thought it was years. Like I feel like the improvement, it's fast.
Hey, you got to share the bitter and the sweet.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, that's the whole point, right? To teach people if they can avoid a mistake that you've made, then you've done something.
I don't think you can avoid it, but you can at least have the takeaway of how I got through it.
Yes.
And,
right.
Oh, I did want to say one more thing, and that was, early on when I was there were two issues that in hindsight, looking back, what would I have done differently?
Yes.
The first, there were a couple of things. One thing I ultimately had to do was I had to get the app on my phone for our home security cameras, because she was a black widow and she kept fucking showing up at my house, and I was like, do not let her in the house.
Nope.
You know what I mean? So, like, number one, don't be afraid if your partner is breaking boundaries to get some intelligence that they know. He knew. I was like, I'm gonna need that app on my phone now. Show me how it works. I gotta keep an eye on you. So
there's a big difference between doing something like that behind somebody's back, like tracking them without them knowing. And it sounds like this was something that he was wanting to work on. He was wanting to break it off, but didn't have that strength in himself. Caught. Yeah. So
yes. And I think that the work that he's doing now with a therapist, I think that it was his mother died when he was young, and it was some trauma from that and the particular dynamic he had with this woman that got him in trouble. I don't want to speak for him. This is what my guidance to him is, and I'm pretty smart and know what I'm doing, and I know him like the back of my hand. So
after all these years.
That was one. The second one was compersion is important, but put it on the scale of justice with your boundaries. What happened was I was trying to be this perfect poly person. And so I gave compersion more weight than my own boundaries. And what I realized is that that came from my insecure childhood attachments, making me a people pleaser and giving up my own needs for others. And what I say is that I don't like the word boundaries because it sounds like a fence or something. You know what I mean? It sounds like a thing that separates us. I wish there was a better word for it, but what boundaries really do is they tell your partner or partners how to treat you. It goes back to my relationship magic book. It's like, I'm going to need these things from you to be happy in relationship with you, like my security, my honesty, my variety. These are things that are my top relationship values. And when you do that, it's not boundaries. It's actually a gift of insight into how to love you. It's your love recipe. That's what your boundaries are. They're your love. They're your love cheat sheet cards. They're your little index cards of here's what you need to do. Here's what you need to do to love me the way I need to be loved. And I really think that that's what I didn't understand before. And then there was one more I wanted to tell you, like hindsight is 2020 is so important. There was the boundaries. Oh, I know what I was training. When they started dating, I was too sick to even get out of bed. I had to hold the wall to get to the bathroom and come back. I practically couldn't make it. I was very, very ill. There were moments where I thought I was going to pass. So I was in no shape to train a new partner. So patterns were established that were unacceptable in a matriarchal V polycule.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to say that. You're right. The fact that you were not present there at the very beginning that relationship got established, everything was different than it would have been.
Yep. And so I was too exhausted to train her, and then I was too angry to deal with it, and I was dealing with my own stuff and still trying to have compersion, and that was just a bad situation. When I'd like my husband to have some more girlfriends. But man, I've learned a lot about how when you bring people into your polycule, they get very entitled very quickly. And like, oh, well, this is what's happening. I just show up, they feed me, I'm not doing the dishes, I just get and go home. And it's like, you know what? No. Like with my boyfriend, he does all the dishes. He takes out the trash. He does odd jobs around the house. He keeps all our bikes working. He keeps our cars in good shape. Like he's contributing to the
He's a member of the family.
He is a member of the family. I never liked her enough to make her a member either.
Yeah.
So I have to like her. That's the matriarchal
Oh,
pieces.
yeah.
I want you to be happy, but whether I have sex with her or not, and I'd like to, I'd rather find someone that I enjoy being in, that everybody likes having sex together. That's my ultimate. Someone who's really contributory, kind, caring, and additive.
Yep. Yeah, you brought some very interesting and true needs to be in a happy V or any type of poly relationship. If there's no compatibility there, then it's not going to work out long term.
Exactly.
This is one of those things where I feel like there's been a hole in the polyamorous community where social media especially is really good about showing you the good stuff, and then the media is really good about telling you how polyamory will ruin your lives. But there's a lack of this transparency from real life.
Real stories.
Stories and experiences where you're like, well, this is what went wrong and this is how I think I could have avoided it. Or this is what went right and this is how we got this. So thank you for your honesty and just transparency in telling us what went on.
This has been something we've been trying to do, get both sides, the good and the bad.
Yeah, just the real life stories and
Yep.
everything. Anything else you'd like to share with our listeners before we wrap up here?
Well, I think probably the big takeaway for me has been where I ended up was feeling like I could never live without my husband, and then realizing that I could, and how, not that I don't want to. I never, ever, ever want to be without him. I want to die in his arms. But I can. I can live without him. And I don't think I could have until now, in my 60s. And man, it takes a long to grow up.
Yes, it does.
And
You're making me feel worse about it now because I'm in my 40s and I still feel like I'm growing up. And so it's never ending, right?
so I would say that I have one of the big things that I talk about out in the world is ageless sexuality. And ageless sexuality is all the sexual biohacking things that I do, like, my gains wave treatments, or, taking my nitric oxide supplements, or using my red light therapies, or whatever it is. Because as you age, as you hit your 50s and your late 50s, and for men, sometimes earlier, their 40s, our genital systems start to age. And so I love this idea of reversing aging, and knowing that we can stay sexually active till the day we die. And I would say that generally it was interesting to realize that I would be okay. Finally, I grew up enough where my own happiness was so on the precipice that I had to stand for myself, and that I realized that there was no one person that needed to take care of me, that I had to take care of myself, and that I would also never give up my sexuality. I want to die a sexual being because I see how much it adds to my life. It's fiery. It drives my passion. It drives my creativity. It's my turn on. It's my zest for life. It's my lust for life. It co-regulates me. It grounds me. It's a nervous system reboot. It sends oxygenation to my brain. I'm massively orgasmic, and I keep getting more and more orgasmic as I age. And that all of that is within me now and always will be if I nurture it and put my intention and attention on my sexuality. And that our sexuality is our own beautiful gift that we share with others who are deserving of it. And I had always felt like my sexuality was an equal partnership between my lover or lovers and myself. What I didn't realize was that it's actually the fire within me that I must protect.
That's true. That's something I realized quite recently as well. I think it comes with age.
And in a culture where that's not taught to us.
Oh, it's not only not taught to us, it's taken out of us
Yes.
Yeah.
by
Yeah,
our
exactly.
society, by religion.
Shadow banned from us.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. We are sexually
example.
shadow banned.
That's
So
right.
true, Josh.
Well, Susan, thank you again so much for joining us today and sharing your experiences and wisdom with us. It's been such a great conversation.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
It's been my pleasure. I've enjoyed getting to know the three of you, and I'm honored to be on your show. And I look forward to more anytime.
If you like our episodes, subscribe to our channels and share them with people just like yourselves.
And if you are needing more support in this polyamorous or throuple lifestyle, please head over to Facebook to join our private group, Throuple Talks Connection Hub.
And we'll see you next time.